Governor Katie Hobbs is the Gavin Newsom of Arizona. And she's going to prove it on her career is just over. Welcome to the Doug TenNapel channel. This is where the happy patriots are. We have a long history with Arizona. Kari Lake, but long before that, the beloved Miss TenNapel is from Arizona. So she was raised all in that area. So I've known Arizona politics for about 30 years now. Let's watch. So here's Governor Katie Hobbs admits she will ignore the mandate from Arizona voters who overwhelmingly supported Prop 314.
Would you, as governor, allow state police and National Guard to carry out mass deportations?
We will not be participating in misguided efforts that harm our communities.
That is overwhelmingly against the voters of Arizona themselves. We'll get to Homan in just a second. Trump, this is going to put her in the target for Trump and Tom Homan. So here's Tom Homan.
As far as the deportation operation, we will prioritize public safety threats and national security threats because they pose the biggest danger to the United States. He's got three rails. So we'll do the deportation operation with the priorities I just talked to you out of the gate. That'd be the priorities. Second thing is secure that border. Lock that border down and catch and release and secure the border. The third rail is we got over 300,000 missing children. Over 500,000 children have been trafficked into the United States. This administration released them to unvetted sponsors, and they can't find 300,000 of them. And based on my 3.5 decades, some of these children are in forced labor. We already found some in forced labor. Some are in forced trafficking. Some of them are files. We need to save these children. That's going to be.
And that's in Arizona. Arizona, those are your values. These are Arizona values now. Losing 300,000 children, putting them in hard labor and trafficking. Does that sound like the red state guy with a cowboy hat out there in the desert, Marlboro Man? Suddenly they're into trafficking. That is not what the people voted for. These are California liberals that all went to Arizona and a bunch of McCainites, all the McCainites that are anti-Kari Lake, never Trumper McCainites. Are these your values? 300,000 missing children. Okay, just wondering because Katie Hobbs won with an overwhelming majority. And this is where she's also just like Gavin Newsom. Liberals, they always have the luxury of their snobby elite condescension of looking down at the common man. Oh, MAGA, they're so radical, those evangelicals, superstitious, the deplorables. And then they watch liberals govern their state when they're in charge of things. Katie Hobbs, we have a bunch more evidence of how she is going to be investigated. It's not just about immigration, it's about even her own budget.
Well, as we know, the Biden administration has been hammered on what they didn't do to secure our borders. So how did Democrats like you win back the trust from voters on this very issue?
I want to let my audience say in the chat, what would it take for Katie Hobbs to win back your trust? Because I don't see her winning back anyone's trust, given she endorsed everything Biden did. She needs to resign would be the only way I'd ever respect or trust her again.
Well, I've been focused on this issue from day one of taking office, and I have not been hesitant to push back on the Biden administration.
Why? Where did you push back? This is a lie.
And Congress, where they have failed Arizonans on border security.
But it's your border. That's the other thing, the lack of accountability, the lack of a mea culpa. Just say, look, I did this. I screwed up. The blame always goes to someone else. Next up. Okay, this is an article I've got at AZ Central. This is Katie Hobbs's budget director resigns as legislature governor negotiates spending plans. So her spending, which is just, again, another Newsomism. Her spending is so bad. Here's the key points. Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs' chief budget advisor Sarah Brown resigned. Brown said her resignation letter she wanted to focus on other parts of her life, like success. Brown's tenure was marked by clashes with Republican lawmakers over priorities and alleged budget errors, and we're going to have video of them just hammering the daylights out of her on this one. The chief advisor to Governor Katie Hobbs gave notice of her resignation on Wednesday, just weeks into the annual process to negotiate a state spending plan with lawmaker Sarah Brown, director of the governor's Office of Strategic Planning and Budgeting, wrote that her last day would be February 12th. Quote, working for you has been a dream, but the time has come for me to give more of myself to other parts of my life, she wrote in a resignation letter for governor, and ran underneath a table and curled up into a ball and cried. Hobbs named Brown her budget director in late 2022. At the time, they'd worked together for 3 years, with Brown serving as Hobbs's chief financial officer and human resources director, HR, human resources, when Hobbs was Secretary of State. Quote, Sarah served the state with distinction, working for the governor for at least 6 years, Hobbs spokesperson Christian Slater, the Christian Slater, said in an email. Running a statewide elected officials' budget office is a tough job, and Sarah wanted a break. As the governor's budget chief, Brown helped shape how to fund Hobbs's policy goals during a financially turbulent times. Now, this is the big one, guys, right here. This is all I got to read of this article. The 2023 budget divided up a $2 billion surplus for lawmakers' pet projects. So they had $2 billion surplus to garner bipartisan support. And the 2024 budget saw sweeping cuts due to an over $1 billion deficit. Now, I'm no mathematician, but they went from, under her watch, under Katie Hobbs and this Brown, they went from $2 billion surplus to $1 billion in the hole. That's a $3 billion drop because of Democrat governance. Okay, here's a tweet from Carrie Lake. The math suggests Katie Hobbs managed to lose $339 million of taxpayer money. This needs to be investigated, and everything that comes out of her office should be audited. This woman never should have been in the office in the first place. Just another tragic consequence of Arizona's broken elections. I don't know if it's the elections, guys. I'm not going to blame that. I get where Carrie Lake's coming from. I think it's California values seeping into Arizona. And one thing that you'll see with California values is California liberalism. It's like the dumb works, the dumb can govern until there's trouble. They get all kinds of money, California money, Arizona money. The dumb are richer than ever. And then trouble comes and they cannot govern in a panic. For that, you need Republican leadership, you need adults in the room, and you need competence. This guy is going to call out the specifics on that whole thing. And Sarah Brown, you're going to see why she had to resign here.
So I would love the executive to provide us a detailed list of all supplementals needed before June 30th. When we did it over the weekend, we came up with a figure of almost $340 million in needed supplementals. And when you do, and there's a couple of new members on this committee, and there's new members in the two different bodies. $340 million in current year supplementals is an emergency. And if we don't pass that, my understanding, let's just pick one of the agents, one section in the developmental disabilities. My understanding is you need $110 million before April 1st, or that will run out of money. Are you aware of that, and is that factored in? And that's just one part of that $340 million.
So, Mr. Chair, so yes, and we have some of those slides upcoming with those FY25 supplementals. Yes, the value for the FY25 supplementals that's factored into the FY26 amount, so the ending cash balance would include that, is as you calculated as well, $340 million.
Yeah, I mean, it could be $1 million high or $1 million low, but 340 is a big number. So I'm going to let you go to the next slide, but I just want to summarize for my membership for a second. So we're starting off with $360 million higher revenue that you guys are showing than we're showing. We're starting off with $846 million higher expenses for access than you're showing, and now we're showing $340 million in supplemental expense that needs to be done on an emergency basis to keep agencies running, and we're on page 12. And so, I mean, that alone is more than the whole increase of your budget of $1.3 billion.
And so there's a shortfall there, and they can't find the money, and they're overspending. They're like California. This is the Californification of Arizona. Now, my only question is, I get it. You guys picked wrong. You guys picked Katie Hobbs, and you picked wrong. You made a big mistake in going with Democrats in Arizona. My only question now is to the voters. Are they so religiously, psychotically Democrat that they will crash Arizona into the ground on the border, now on their money? Katie Hobbs has also screwed up their water rights, their taxes, everything they've governed is screwed into the ground and going insolvent. By the way, I did not show the clip of, there's another guy in this meeting who just flat out says, you're showing zero amount of budget for 2027 and 2028. That is, they literally have done nothing to secure any of these programs into the future. And the guy said that has never been done in Arizona's history. This is a level of squander and incompetence like they've never seen. This is what happens when you just run hate ads against Kari Lake and just, ooh, Trump's mean. Trump said mean things to John McCain. He may have said mean things to John McCain. He has. So did Kari Lake. It does not save your state is getting screwed into the ground. You know what's meaner? The niceness of Katie Hobbs is crueler to thousands of children sold into slavery in Arizona. That's what you voted for. I don't want to be all hard on you Arizonans. I know that they're really just kind of liberals, and people that go along with their plans are well-meaning, but dangerously naive. The investigation begins. Look at this document. It's official. Okay, here we go. Exclusive. Democrat Arizona Katie Hobbs under fire after $339 million disappeared from the state budget. At Hobbs's budget director mysteriously resigns. This is from the Gateway Pundit. I'm actually going to skip straight down to this document here. This is from Alexander Kolodin to the committees. The Vice Chairman, Regulatory Oversight, Arizona House of Representatives. This is via email to Honorable Katie Hobbs regarding mismanagement of state funds and agencies, pressing budget questions. Dear Governor Hobbs, imagine my shock when the legislature was informed the state has several insolvent agencies and require a $339 million bailout to close out the current fiscal year. Since your liaisons dedicated to briefing members of the legislature failed to provide detail on how we got here, I am putting my request in writing. Arizonans deserve to know details. Number one, why did you mislead the legislature about the spending you intended to approve? In just 2 weeks' time, I've learned that the problem has worsened and that your office's request is now $350 million. It is my understanding that the Department of Development Disabilities is short another $12 million. Your office's presentation to the legislature stated that this critical program may run out of money in April or May. Which is it? Your AHCCS department reportedly applied to continue a COVID-era program in parents as paid caregivers after last year's budget was voted on, but you gave us no indication that you intended to approve this spending when we were making fiscal year 2024 budget allocations. Why wasn't the legislature consulted on this? What are your estimates for the cost of the program? Why did your budget team refuse to work with us to budget for a known cost? Last year, your office refused to recognize the state's liabilities in the Quasimir litigation. Despite knowing full well that our cost paid through ADE was roughly $60 million, your refusal to budget for this last June now represents a completely unbudgeted cost. Now your office acknowledges the payment, blowing a fresh hole in the budget. Why did your office refuse to budget for a known cost? Who is in your orbit is profiting off of Arizona's children? This is an old accusation. Congregate care at your Department of Child Safety is reportedly out of funding due to higher costs. Quite famously, DCS awarded higher rates to a vendor with connections to your office and your inaugural fund, which remains under investigation by the Attorney General's and Maricopa's attorneys' offices. They basically gave her big campaign finances. She's probably getting kickbacks. Why has your budget director taken the fall? I have also learned that your budget director resigned yesterday. What are the circumstances surrounding her resignation? Arizonans deserve answers, and I questions as I request a full accounting for the programs that are apparently broke. For Arizona, Alexander Kolodin. I don't know how many answers you're going to get, given it's going to Katie Hobbs's office. I don't think you're going to find out much, but it's a good thing this investigation starts as she gets put in hot water. Katie Hobbs, the Gavin Newsom of Arizona, and Arizona isn't even dealing with wildfires. But she needs to resign. I don't know if she'll resign, but she certainly needs to be investigated for all this fiscal squandering. This is normal Democrat stuff, guys. My Arizona people, weigh in the chat below. I'm Doug in Exile.